Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Kelani Blackwell, the founder of Women in Real Estate, a community built to support women navigating real estate spaces professionally, personally, and collectively. So, I've had Kelani on a podcast before, so we go way back. I have some context behind that, but I always like to ask my guests when we get started is like, how are you doing right now? Like, what season in life? We were kind of talking a little bit backstage, but
Oh
yeah, leaving it
man,
open to that.
getting right to well, thank you for having me. It's so good to see you. You look radiant. I want everybody to know that. But okay, so what season am I in? That's such a good question. I'm in a transitional season, I think. I think both personally and professionally. I got to a point at the end of 2025 where I felt like I was working so hard and I've been so ready to see the fruit of my labor. And there has been some. There's been a lot. Actually, I guess it depends on who you ask or what the day looks like. But as you know, as an entrepreneur, it's one thing after another. It's an invoice after another. It's a problem after another. It's a scaling issue. It's one thing. And it's like, okay, when am I going to get there? I'm officially a 5-year entrepreneur, a women in real estate turned five. Story. Thank you so much. Thank you. It is. And it was so crazy how I realized, I knew in January it was coming up, but I was on my first team meeting of the year and I was asking our social media manager to, create some content for that. And I said, let me look up when the actual day is. And it happened to be on the same day, like that I'm having this meeting. And so I just had this moment. I got off that meeting and I literally like cried and boohooed like a little baby, just grateful for the journey. But I'm like, okay, I know that this has legs. The concept has been proven. We are solving a need in the marketplace. Wonderful things have happened. But I think, we've got another gear. We've got another mode. And so I did some pretty deep soul searching at the end of last year, got into a new routine, a new mindset about how I'm operating, and it's serving me really well. So I'm actually excited. So what season am I in? Like transitional. We have a whole lot of new things that are happening and they all launch on the 1st, and that's like 3 days away. So I'm freaking out, but it's all good things and I'm excited about it.
And a lot of people, I used to like not look down upon that, but it's like we put this pressure on ourselves, like we have to have everything figured out, like, and if we don't, it's like we're not necessarily a failure, but it's like we don't have our shit together, right? And I think there's something beautiful in the transition period. Like, I'm really big on like butterflies and the evolution of what it takes to become that butterfly. It's like, yeah, you have to go through the ugly, or you have to, like, things can be messy. You may not know what's going on, but like at the end of the tunnel, like that's kind of it's what you built this for, right? And it's funny because as you were saying that, I was thinking back to like when we first connected, and so many people did too, right? Back in 2020, which was
Yeah.
Clubhouse, and like
Hmm.
how Wire just all came together then. So that was a transition period too, right? In a way, like the whole world was transitioning. What would you say from that point? Like, I mean, looking back, I feel it seems like 10 years ago, honestly, not even like five. But
Forever.
like,
I know. I
what
know.
would you say, like that, like where was Kilani at that transition period versus like where you're at now?
I was a whole different person then. A whole different person then. So during that era, I was minding my business, drinking my water, focused on being the best commercial broker I could learn to be, learning multifamily at big box, navigating corporate, trying not to make too many waves, but making enough. And I think at that point, like I knew, right, this is about being built different. I always knew there was something different about me and kind of what I, for lack of better terms, brought to the table. I knew I had a different outlook, a different approach than what was normal in that space. But looking back, I think I lacked confidence, and not confidence in myself, just confidence in knowing the things, like it was new all over again. So then we jump into this world of Clubhouse now, and even at that point, I had been in the industry 5, 6 years. Like I'm a vet in real estate, right? But I was new in the commercial space. And so I had a lot of fundamentals. I knew what I knew well, but then I just felt like there was this whole ocean of things that I didn't know. And so I was super hesitant to really walk in it. And I didn't really have a choice. I got called to it. So you want to make God laugh, have a plan. I had no idea that women in real estate was going to become a thing. It was not on my, like, who knew? Who knew that this would be where I would be today? I had freaking no idea. And so to fast forward to this moment and look back, I was just talking about this on one of our calls with our members yesterday. I look back at content that I made 5 years ago. And, we're our own worst critics. And I think I'm definitely at a point now where I can just take it for what it is and love it. That's where I was at in that season. But there's just a whole different level of confidence that comes with me now. And I'm not trying to be that way, but I'm like, if I could give myself any advice back then, it would have been to own that shit, girl. Like, you are who you think you are and still am, and it's a personal journey. That's not in relation to anybody else. That's just me versus me. So, yeah, I didn't know shit back then. Still don't know shit today. I'm just trying to keep it together and adapt and learn as quickly as possible and just own that.
Vibrating as well, like, you chop the hair. I think there's like so many identities that we go through, especially in like entrepreneurship. Like, we were just joking, I'm like, I had my hair super short. I was going through my own journey with that, of like, navigating being new in real estate too. And like, I feel like going into Clubhouse, and I remember you, Brittany, Patty, and like just feeling some form of comfort of like, wow, there's women in this space.
Yeah.
There's so much. And it's funny because we're our harshest critics, because even then, like, I was like, Kelani, like, she knows her shit. It's funny you were saying you didn't know your shit. Like, I was like, she knows her stuff.
Yeah.
Because just the way you like presented yourself, the way you communicated, I was like, okay, like, that's somebody I want to, fall behind and like learn from and stuff like that. So it's like so beautiful to see where what you and Brittany and the team are building there, because it's stemmed from, like you said, like something you least expected. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that come up. And for someone that is also currently new in the commercial space, got my license late last year, and joined a team and everything. I do have that sense of like that real estate knowledge, but commercial is like a whole other, I don't know, world, so to speak, that you're
Mhm.
entering and navigating, also being a woman. And I chose specifically, intentionally, I chose industrial, because I was like, I don't really see too many, first off, women, and even any, whether it's women or not, like people of color in that space. And I know that's like a big factor too for Wire is that how, like, what you noticed early on working at a big box like CBRE, like about the women experience, in these sort of spaces, specifically commercial, because I think even now I feel like we've come a long way, but we have such a long way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's always work to be done. Commercial real estate's a funny business. It's an interesting thing because it far exceeds the fundamentals of transacting. So when you think about your real estate experience and knowledge, you know, that is literally like a fraction of what's needed to actually be successful in the business. This relationship, this business is solely about relationships, and people are not prepared to get out of their comfort zone to create those relationships. So I remember when I was like super new, coming from like a fix and flip background and a residential investment background, right, at scale. I come in and I'm like, what do you guys like? What do you mean you don't just call people? What do you mean you don't like? Okay, yeah, we cold call, but what do you mean you're not sending text messages? What do you mean you're not? It was this. There was just this crazy stigma around not overstepping or having some sort of ego and not. It was so weird. There was just like these rules, unspoken rules of how you meet people and get introduced. And here I am with all of this energy, and I'm like, I'm just call, you know, and So I did a lot. I had to learn the political nature of it. And the reality is that commercial real estate is not nearly as regulated. It's not, like there's no NAR for commercial real estate. That governs your code of ethics, right? Like they do for residential. It's the wild, wild west. So there are no rules. But what I found to be funny is that the people that I were learning from were like old white guys that didn't even have like LinkedIn profiles. And although you guys may know the current owners, those guys are like 80, 90 on the way out the door. I'm trying to figure out who are your kids, who are your successors, who's inheriting this, who has the LinkedIn profile, who's a little bit more socially conscious and aware and cares about inclusion and wants to work with somebody other than the predominant player or the person who holds all the market share. And that's kind of where I started to make some headway. And it's because people, even that you start with at your level, they become decision makers in the future. And I think people get it messed up or they're always trying to go for the decision makers right off rip. But I also entered the business at a time where nobody was selling anything. Interest rates were dirt cheap. Everybody like refinanced their debt. Like, people were paying top dollar for assets and trading if they wanted to. Like sellers were not moving. And then I remember I remember very distinctly kind of transitioning a little, I was really taking on women in real estate and my phone was still ringing from owners and sellers back in Columbus that were wanting to have a conversation now. And I'm like, you ignored my phone call about 56 times last year. Funny that you should be calling me now. So like exactly. So, it's just one of those things. I learned that being nice doesn't really get you anywhere. You want to be a good business person, but worrying about stepping on toes, worrying about opinions isn't going to get you anywhere. If you think about, being the broker that's going to be employed or hired to carry out, a sale, they want to be confident that you're going to do what needs to be done. And being timid is not on that list. Right. So I learned to just be bold with it. And I was like asking very intentional questions. I was getting straight to the point. I was no nonsense. And I found that most men don't expect that on the other side. And so they found it quite refreshing and it played in my favor more often than not. So,
There's come off super easygoing, but as like a new broker, that's something I talk about a lot is like, hey, like just get to the point. Like if we're speaking with multimillionaires or these owners that own like tons of entire portfolio, they're busy. Like you have to get to the point, and especially on a cold call is like why, like it's finding out how you can stand out. And to your point, not many women are gonna be that direct or not be scared to ask those intimidating questions. And I think that's something maybe that comes with the reps too. And I'm getting to that point where I think before I used to be so caught up on like there was a distinction between like where I'm at, right? And like maybe where this owner is or maybe where this top broker is. But it's like, why am I putting them on a pedestal? Like they may have their own whatever the situation, but there's nothing. I'm here to help at the end of the day. I think the right brokers do the right things. They're there to add value to clients. And if you're doing that, like just embrace it and step into your power. And I think that's the important aspect of is missing, I think, with a lot of women. Women are it's taking a little bit longer to that power within them. We're raised maybe to be more timid and allow the men to like kind of take control. And it's like it's okay to to be that bad. You know what I mean. Like so, I think that's something that's really important to embrace. And I wanted to kind of like step into because you kind of took a risk too in starting. So it sounds like you kind of left the brokerage business to, or how, like, what was that like?
well, women in real estate just took on a life of its own. And I had to make a choice at some point like, okay, where am I going to spend the majority of my time? And the reality is like I'm super fulfilled by the work that we do in women in real estate. So I had to make that choice. And it wasn't the choice to step away from brokerage necessarily. It was the choice to step away from being owned by big box. Because as you know, I can still transact to this day. It doesn't matter if I'm licensed somewhere. A big part of being a broker is matchmaking. It's seeing and identifying opportunity and matching that with the right, I don't know, end buyer or capital, capital source or whatever that sponsor, whatever, and being able to matchmake and having women in real estate was one of the best and biggest business development efforts I could have even asked for because then people started to look to me for answers and help. And if that means I get to still matchmake and, you know, partner with other brokers and to, quarterback deals and send business your way and whatever, I'm just as happy with doing that. And I don't need to, my business card, I can have multiple business cards and fulfill the same function and not necessarily be tied to a big box institution. So deals have been done. Don't get it, just because. Yeah, yeah. So I think that was like the biggest difference, but when you realize and I talk about this a lot in Women in Real Estate, and I even have in some content, but when you realize that your brand is yours and you own it regardless of where you are, what firm, if it's big box, if it's mid-market, if it's like a boutique firm, if it's commercial, if it's resi, if it's whatever, you own the brand that you create, and that's your leverage to negotiate with anybody on the other side of the table. And now I've built a brand where I can do that. And so it kind of works. It works either way.
As a broker, obviously, really blended beautifully when you guys started Wire and building that community. Because I think people really underestimate how hard it is to build a community. Like, and you guys are obviously growing. Like, what has been the challenge there as you guys are scaling? Like, you're mentioning like operations and this hiring this person and that person. Like, what? How do you maintain the integrity of Wire as you're scaling?
Um, well, one, it's a non-negotiable. So that's something that Brittany and I have never compromised on, and we won't. It's not in the plans. So I think the hardest part has been taking something that started so organically and meeting that with paid advertising missions to continue to scale, right? Because organic growth it's got a life cycle, right? And we really hit a lightning in a bottle moment with Clubhouse. I don't even know. I don't even do viral. I don't even I couldn't even tell you. It's been at least a year at minimum since I even opened the app. I don't even know if it's even on my phone anymore, but that was like a true lightning in a bottle moment that I didn't expect. I wasn't trying, so then how do you take that momentum from something super organic that's super refreshing that people are really looking for, and then how do you like sustain over time? No shade. A lot of the people who created programs and things in that era like fizzled out. I can think of like 2 or 3 that even still exist from that time period. We're we're one. But I think that that's because we started with a mission of true like service and help. And so we've maintained that in kind of like the fabric of our culture. And the hardest part has been figuring out how to scale and maintain the organic feel, although we have to become more systemized and we do have to market. We have to have an ad budget. We do need to run ads. We do need to. So that's been the biggest challenge. But I think we've overcome that challenge by creating solutions for what people need and just being super niche on what our mission is. Like, it's not my job to appeal to everyone. Women in real estate is a huge demographic. If you think about what that means, like, women in real estate does not cater to just real estate agents or just commercial brokers. Like, we have everybody. We got lenders, lawyers, builders, developers, transaction coordinators, like you name it, it exists. I can't possibly appeal to all of these people. So we've been intentional with like, it's not niche specific, it's commitment specific. Like, what do you want? How do you want to show up? What does business development look like for you? And we're invitation only. So you can't come in here looking for a, what can you do for me? This is a how we build with each other vibe. And that's why our retention is so high. We have members that have been with us all 5 years, and that, yeah.
sure even those members like started too. Like there's because I know the goal with like Wire and like what I've seen is there's like, hey, we're growing together. Like we're in this together, and like you do feel that like that community feel that hey, you and Brittany are invested. It's because I think talking about those groups that fizzled out, I think the because the foundation set was just like it was very temporary, it's very superficial.
It was a money
I
grab.
think the it was a money grab, right? Just like everything else, because people are seeking that, quick satisfaction, right? Like even now to this point. But I think it was starting 2020 where it's like, hey, get rich quick, join my program, and then you join it, and it's like
Huh?
what
Why?
I just spent, there's so many people I spoke with that are like, I spent 30 grand and I don't know what happened with it,
Right.
uh, and so it's just like, it is because it's so rare to find. I think that's why you guys have kept that retention is because you honestly feel like you guys truly care. And it's rare to see that with people that, whatever programs there are, because especially as you scale, it's like how can you connect with so many people if you have hundreds of people on the call? But I think to your point, if you guys are sticking with to the foundation and the integrity of it, I think naturally you people gravitate towards you. What has been like kind of the transition that you've seen within those members from that's been there for like 5 years? I'm sure it's like you guys have like navigated that together and like scaling in their own business, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm not even gonna lie. It's like one of the only thing. I'm not a super like emotional person, but that will bring a tear to my eye so quick. We've had members do phenomenal things together. They've met new partners, they've done deals, they've started new businesses, they've left corporate, they've joined corporate, we've got them placed in commercial roles, we've got, well, we've helped people with their business plans. I mean, like all of the things for doing business and deal transacting and referring business and partnering, that's all happened. That's a natural byproduct of being in the environment. Not even just being in it, investing it, caring to make connections. It happens. But I think for me, the most beautiful part about witnessing that is the vulnerability that comes from going through those seasons. We have a really safe space. Sometimes we're crying on calls, sometimes we're laughing. We are super introspective, we're honest with ourselves. We understand that we have to get out of our own way. And, I don't. The reason that women in real estate isn't like strategy specific or niche specific is because I've seen it. I've been on the residential side. I've been on the commercial side. I've been on the investment side. I've been on the personal side of things. Like transacting is transacting. The fundamentals are the same. What tools do you have in your tool belt? When you come across an opportunity, and I say it all the time, you should be able to breathe in air and spit out money. I think I said that on the first podcast that we did together, and I live by that. If you can identify opportunity, then in your tool bag, you should have an array of tools that you can dive into and grab and apply. And that doesn't mean that you need to be the expert in all things. It means you need to know where to get the information. Who can I ask? Who can I trust? Who can I partner with? Who can point me in the right direction? You simply need to know, oh, I think that there's something here. And that way you can quit leaving money on the table. So that's like the approach. But we've seen our members through all of the seasons, through the emotional tests of the transitional period, the wanting to quit, the questioning, did I make the right decision, to getting, making some result and being so happy about their progress. And then, coming back and saying, okay, I need to pivot. How do I change? Which is why the community is so important because it's not just like a one-time thing. Not only are we experiencing all of the change that is happening on a daily basis, the variables that we can't control, administration changes, there are changes, economic changes, like whatever the things are, natural disasters, pandemics, whatever, there are all of these things out of our control. And we have to navigate those together. So what can we control? And it is my mission to make sure that every woman in our community has built a business on a strong foundation to be able to withstand all of those challenges. And I think that we've successfully done that because now we've got our members who are vets and they've dabbled into different things and they're exploring different things, but they have the confidence to do that. And they will run back into office hours and be like, okay, can you look at this contract for me? Because I don't, and what I love to see. That's how we love to support. And so that's been the most beautiful part is just seeing how our members have just blossomed and grown through it because there is no like get there. You know, you might accomplish a thing, buy an asset, but the goals are going to change. The variables are going to change. You're going to have to revisit the drawing board. So that's why this is like a long-term relationship with us and our members because that's how it has to be. If you think like you're just destination oriented and I got there and it's good, like, girl, let me just tell you, wait on it, wait on it.
Broker business, right? Like everything's long term. Like, if we're talking whether you're in residential or commercial, like it's so funny coming, me specifically from wholesaling, it's something that's very transactional where you're like, okay, on to the next versus getting into the broker agent business where you are counting on those long-term relationships. You're hoping, okay, I sent this investor a deal. Hey, let's grow together. Like maybe it's a new investor. Hey, well, let's grow. I want to build your portfolio. Or you get in touch with this owner, maybe for 56, you call them 56 times. And it's in those moments where you don't give up because the mindset has to change. And I think the I don't want to call it the problem. I think it's just how we've been conditioned to think on you know, we don't think on the long term end, especially when it comes to like relationships and business. And that is the key is like the follow ups, it's the intentionality behind it. And I think that's one thing like you guys have done really well is like you guys have really cultivated those relationships the same way if it were a client, right? It's like you, all these members are like your clients that you're,
Yeah.
just building up. And so there are no shortcuts in anything like for people to assume, hey, I mean mentorship obviously maybe does baby shortcuts, but you still have to put in the work. And I think we're living in a age where people don't want to do the work anymore, whether it's like Gen
Talk
Z's, right?
about
Or
it.
like I just
Talk about it.
you have a sister, right? Like
Do. I do. You're
so it's
right.
like yeah. And I have a 20 agents that I work with. So funny, like the mindset is so, I mean, I guess pushing my 30s, like you get to that point, but there's a
There's a huge disconnect. But, I don't know if that's even age specific. What I've learned,
mm,
which is why we vet everybody that comes into women in real estate, whether it's inside of women in real estate, it's pertaining to membership, or if it's brokerage or whatever, there is a huge gap. I don't think people understand what the work actually means. The shortcut is the long way. Less distraction. And so when you can wrap your mind around the fact that instant gratification is not a thing anymore, you can actually start to feel good about what your progress looks like. I think the problem is that people want to measure their progress or success based on the revenue or the numbers or the commissions or whatever. Understandably so. We need to eat. We need to make money. So if you're not making money, my question would be, what does your process look like? Because a lot of people will lean into that. So there are professional, like, degree earners, and it's like, okay, well, or professional credential chasers that have not transacted. And so there's like, I've seen it on both sides. But what a lot of people fear, right? There's the fear cripples them from doing the work. And that could be rooted in a lot of different things: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of self, fear of whatever the things are. And we talk about that a lot inside of our community, but I think that people don't understand what it actually means to do the work. And in this 5-year period where it feels like every day I've just woken up and thrown spaghetti at the wall and I haven't gotten to where I want to go, they think that throwing that spaghetti has been unproductive. Let me tell you what, my biceps, my triceps, this grip, this swing, like whatever, I have become the best spaghetti thrower. And they just discount what that experience has taught them, and eventually something sticks. And so I think it's about like reps. I think people get so distracted and they don't see a result and they think that they're doing something wrong. And it's like, no, no, this is a part of the process. And it doesn't matter what it is that you do. It's entrepreneurship. It's like full of rejection. And so you have to continuously build these muscles that help you get through, because until you do, you're not ever going to see the satisfaction that you're looking for. And so it's just this thing where it's like, I don't really want to hear, did you do the work? We're full of accountability. I love accountability. It's my middle name, and I love to be held because I understand that that's actually what I need. I don't take it personally. I'm not mad, I confront myself all day and all night and deal with my things and heal and address, my issues that are preventing me from making the progress that I make. But you can only like will your way to success so much. You need to be in alignment. You need to have a clear vision. You need to be free of distraction. You need to like have focus. Like there's so much intentionality that goes into it. But if you're being super intentional and if you are putting up the reps, you have to understand that that's part of becoming great. You don't just land this client and now all of a sudden you're some like power broker. No, it takes years. And I think pertaining to like what you do, these young brokers that are entering the space, they're looking to get the deals. Dude, your first year, it takes 3 to 5 years to build a book of business as a new commercial broker. Your first year, only thing that you should be trying to do is have coffee meetings. I'm not making an ask. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm trying to know you. I'm trying to figure out what your pain points are, and I'm trying to just provide you with solutions. I don't care if it's data, if it's tech, if it's an introduction. I'm not even making an ask. And that's why I think the relationships that I've built have been so fruitful, because I came into everything just like, how can I add value? I never made an ask. So by the time I made an ask, it was somebody that I had a substantial relationship with, and they listened to it, or they decided to show up for me, because I cultivated that relationship, and that goes in every facet of business. So you got me on a soapbox. I'm
When it does come up to that ask, like there's no hesitation because you've already, and that's something, right, I was mentioning too, is when I talk to my broker on these opportunities, and it's like, it's the long game. It's the long game. Like they're not interested right now, but focus on like adding value, like sharing some, booking as many broker opinions of value, BOVs, right? Of like providing insights, like whatever it is. Do they do refinance? Like hook them up with the lender, and not. I think at the end of the day, it's like not expectations with anything. It's just like just as long as you're helping someone along their way, like it's gonna. Of course, you have to protect yourself and make sure things are set up. But I feel like when you come from that survival mode, which I've definitely been in, and I'm like learning to get out of, because we've I don't know, I've been conditioned to think of okay, I have to get this now, like, and
right.
you can't really think straight. You can't strategize, like you're literally like tunnel
Mhm.
vision, like you're not open to the different opportunities. And I think that's what happens is people miss out on so many beautiful things because they're just focused on surviving. And we need to focus on just living and being present. And I think by doing that, I think the way the universe works, like it always comes back to you 100 times. But I think, yeah, people are scared of the work. I think that's what it is. Like they fear that they look for every shortcut. They look for just doing their manifestation, or their let me speak to the mirror, but they're not willing to put in the work. They think, oh, let me just do that, and I'm gonna have a successful business. It's like, no, girl, like you gotta put in the work. You can't be afraid to get your hands dirty. And that's one thing when I kind of expected when I became a broker. I was like, I know this is the long game, but let me get a job in the meantime that I know I can do. It's that pays the bills. I can live a certain, not necessarily. I don't want to live too comfortable, because I've been there too, where you're too comfortable with a cushy job, and then it's like you don't push yourself, and like that's going back to accountability. So it's really important that you surround yourself with people, being part of a group like Wire or anywhere else, like mentorship, coaching, that pushes you, that is an environment of people you're not used to, that are above you, that you want to strive for. So that's really something I'm really intentional about this year, is like pushing for like coaching. Like I want to be surrounded by people that are pushing multi-million dollar, billions, right, of deals, where you feel that energy, you feel the shift when you're around those people versus the low producing people. So
Oh,
I think
talk about it.
there's so many things that you can do, but it's like just take the first step, like whatever it is. Like it doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but like just do it.
Yeah, who you surround yourself with, like, is a clear indicator of like where you're headed. If you surround yourself with quality individuals producing folks, like it's only a matter of time till you pick up, what you need to pick up and learn from those situations. Like you absolutely should. But, one of the things that you just said, I think that is super important that we have to acknowledge is that, when you're in survival mode, right, you operate differently than when you're not in survival mode. And so you have to really think about like, okay, what is survival mode for? Do I need to be in survival
Mm.
mode? Am I surviving? Are my essentials, what does surviving mean to you? Because one of the things that I think is so important about cultivating relationships is that you become the person that is the resource. And that might take a lot of time, but eventually people then need you to survive. So this is what and so this is kind of what happens in the dynamic of women in real estate or, in client relationships is that you add so much value that when something happens, I become the first phone call for them. Hey, I had a thought about this. I had a question about this. And so when you become that source for someone or that resource, when you do have an ask, it makes sense. And even if your ask is only, you know what, I'd like an opportunity to compete with this business. I've been working with you, talking to you for the last year, and I think I know what you need better than XYZ broker does. Let me at least compete for this. Or, let me actually, I know you asked me about X, Y, and Z. Here's your answer to X, Y, Z, but here's what you're actually missing. You really need A, B, C. And you just so you can anticipate for people and you just, so when you think about that survival mode, you got to get honest with yourself about what that means because operating from a space of abundance, I know we hear it and we manifestation, like it's all a buzzword at this point, but what I think to be accurate and true is that my source is the Lord. And if I'm truly operating in faith and trust that I am his responsibility and he will provide everything that I need, I have completely surrendered. And it's one of the things I'm doing different this year. I've surrendered surrendered my business. I've surrendered my relationships. I've surrendered my finances. I have surrendered everything. And I need for nothing at this point. So I'm just stewarding. And the pressure that it has taken off of me is crazy. So I don't even know.
I'm also on that same wavelength. It's like, why am I worrying about having enough? I've always had enough. Like, I have enough and I will always have enough. That's a mantra I've like told myself. It's like, why we put so much pressure and like just trust in God or, whoever you believe in, the universe? Like, trust in, just release that control. Because I think ultimately, is like you're controlling too, you're limiting your capabilities by being in that survival mode instead of trusting your capabilities. So it's, for me, it was like stepping in and like trusting myself and what I was brought on this world to do, and enjoying the ride too, right? Like we
And
talk about the
trusting
transition period.
Yeah, and trusting that, like, what's for you is truly for you. I think a lot of people too, like,
Yeah.
get gatekeepy or they don't wanna fully, like, share the connection or share the experience or share the information or feel like, they're competing and whatever, and at the end of the day, most people don't do anything with the information you give them anyway. Like, I'm a different we're different. You could call me and ask me questions and I could give you all of the reason I would selflessly give you everything that I know and have, but it's you that has to perform. It was me that had to perform. So like the experiences are always going to be different. And so when you can operate from that place, just know that your anointing is your anointing. Like who I became in the process of learning these things is different than whoever I'm giving this information to. And so I think people get a little scared of that. And it's like, that's why we can't have nothing nice. That's why and now here we are in 2026, obviously needing community, which is so important, right? We've always needed community. That's why it's more important than ever because people should have access to this information. And now it alleviates a barrier. You could never say you didn't know. You could never say you didn't have access. You could never say you didn't have help. So now what's the problem? And it's another just holding up a mirror, me versus me.
To be, right? It's
Absolutely.
there's I've found that I've really learned, especially as I've gone through my whole healing journey with like my past and like family and all that stuff, is like is coming from a place of understanding. And I think that's where I'm sure you have cultivated, is like, hey, I've been there. Like I know what it's like to think this way. But hey, let me throw you this. Like think about it like this way. And I think if you come in with that place of understanding, I think you're more open to learning instead of like refraining to thinking a certain way or being closed-minded or not sharing. I've learned to give. The more you give, the more you receive too. And it's like that's something that's always been told, but we don't practice. We don't put it into practice with anything. And so that's another thing I'm also like really intentional about, is trusting that whatever I'm giving is going to come back to me. Right. And that's like really stepping into your greatness and what you feel like you were built or put on this earth to do.
Hmm.
So
Well,
I love that you said that. I
you
want to
should
end
feel good.
with one or two questions, which is, you're mentioning you're going into this transition period with Wire, women in real estate. Like, when do you think, like, what does Wire look like a few years from now? Like, what do you hope it represents for?
I don't know what it looks like. I quit trying to think about it because God's vision for it is something I personally probably couldn't even fathom. I didn't even know what it was going to look like when we started. But what I hope people feel like coming through our community is seen and supported. And if we can, there's movement happens, right, when the collective decides. Change happens when the collective decides. So I am just hoping that it continues to be a safe, supportive space for people and we continue to grow and seek opportunity together. It's kind of become this thing now. Wherever I go, and I'll mention women in real estate, and then people are like, "I've seen that. I know this logo." Like people identify with it. It's so wild to me. I'm like, "Oh, you have?" Or people are like, "Oh my god, I know who you are." And I'm like, "Really? Really?" So I want the movement to and the brand to continue to embody what we represent, and that is a safe and supportive environment for everyone who needs it. I think that historically, right, like internet marketing space, the real estate space, it's very predatory, it's very hungry, it's very opportunistic. And I think that's what we're actually trying to protect people from. We don't compete with other programs or things. We're like next to you while you go through those things so you can discern. And so I just want the energy around it. I want it to grow. I want to help more women, but I just want the energy around it to be the same pure energy of an authenticity of just genuine connection and support. That's like my only hope. Now, wherever it goes, whatever God's vision is for it, however, because it's ministry at the end of the day, right? I'm not in there preaching on a daily basis. I'm definitely not. Look, I should not be a preacher, but everyone knows what I stand for and who my source is, and I use that in fueling everything that I do and in how I create our content, and how I create our brand, and how we do our work. And so I just want to continue to glorify God in everything I do and let that be the testimony. That is my only goal. Wherever it goes, it goes, and I'm here for that ride. But I think you had said something just a few seconds ago that really resonated with me, and the I can't remember exactly the word that you just used, but on this journey of like self-discovery, you know, the the judgment-free safety to become who you're intended to be. Oftentimes people don't find that support in their home, from their spouses, from their family, from their church. And I just want everyone to know, like, if God gave you that vision, it's because it can be real. So get your environment that supports that vision. And that's my only hope.
there. Now, yourself with, and that includes your family, your spouses, and I've definitely been part of that. Like, the effects of when there's a disconnect with that. And I think at the end of the day, you just have to trust in yourself, right? And who you believe in, and know that, hey, you're not relying on anybody. You don't need anyone. Like, you don't need your husband, your wife. As long as you're good yourself, God, the universe, whoever it is, I think that's the path you take, not because of someone said this or that, or if Kate this or Brittany or Gladia said that. It's like, no, you're walking in your path, but you have this support of like love and kind of tending you along the way. I think that's the thing that's missing, that you guys have like figured out. And I think why,
Oh,
like, people have
please.
maintained. Yeah, no, I'm really proud of you guys. Like 5 years, I was just thinking like, wow, like time flies so quickly. But I think it also, when you're building like through purpose, I think time flies like that. Like, you're walking in your path. So
Oh, yeah, grab like that. Oh my God. It's 2026. It's the year of the big boundaries. Like big boundaries.
yes.
That's kind of the wave that I'm on. And I encourage, you know, listen, you hit the nail on the head. I think people seek like external validation in relationships. Like I need to be put on. I need somebody to stand up for me. I need someone to give me an opportunity. And it's like that you already have it. It's there. Are you? Yeah, it already exists. So now I appreciate you and your journey that you're on and how vulnerable you are with sharing, your journey as well. Like it's important, Claudia, and I'm proud of you. So keep it going.
Links, but how can they reach you and learn
Yeah.
more about women in real estate?
Yeah. So if you are a woman in real estate, even as a homeowner, you don't need to be in the profession. You mean as an investor, it doesn't matter. Even if you're just interested in home ownership to create wealth for you and your family, all the way up to, our industry vets who want to give back. We have space and room for you all. Join womeninrealestate.com. Happy to schedule a call to see if it's the right environment for you. We are invite only, so make sure that you come prepared to give as well. But as for me, I'm blowing in the wind. I'm doing all the things. My name is Kelani Blackwell. You can find me on all socials at Kelani B. Um, I'll do my best. I don't really check DMs, but you can if anyone needs anything, I think that my link to my calendar is in my link in bio. So thanks for having me. Happy to show up at any time, Claudia. So proud of you and happy to support.
And this is Built Different. See you guys next time.
Different.